September 11th, 2001. 7:59 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 6:59 here. Across the nation, the day dawned clear and cool. Many of us were waking up, getting ready for work, getting ready for school, starting our days in the typical American way. Coffee in the news, weather forecast predicted sunshine and clear blue skies with forecast highs around 80 degrees. Hurricane Erin had blown out to sea and was no longer menacing the East Coast. It promised to be a beautiful day. In Boston, 81 passengers and 11 crew members board American Airlines Flight 11. The flight is fully fueled for his cross-country trip to Los Angeles. We did not know the tragedy was bearing down on us. We did not know that at that very moment, among the passengers were 5 hijackers waiting to turn Flight 11 into an instrument of terror. We did not know that the memory of this date was fated to be changed forever. 8:14 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Flight 11 is hijacked and turned toward Manhattan. 5 minutes later, flight attendants Betty Ong and Madeline Mary Sweeney alert American Airlines, calling to the ground from one of the crew phones. Mrs. Ong reports, "The cockpit is not answering. Somebody is stabbed in business class. And I think that there's mace. We can't breathe. I don't know, but I think we're getting hijacked." The information the 2 flight attendants calmly provide is instrumental in the FBI investigation. At that same moment, 51 passengers, 9 crew members, and 5 hijackers board United Airlines Flight 175. 8:20 a.m. Eastern Time, 7:20 here. American Airlines Flight 77 boards 53 passengers, 6 crew members, and 5 hijackers. 8:37 a.m. Eastern Time, Air Traffic Control alerts the military to the day's first hijacking of Flight 11. Air National Guard jets are sent to locate and tail the hijacked plane. 5 minutes later, 8:42 a.m., 33 passengers, 7 crew members, and 4 hijackers board San Francisco-bound United Airlines Flight 93. At 8:45 a.m., 7:45 here, hijackers take over United Airlines Flight 175 and turn it toward Manhattan. 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 and its 11 crew members, 76 passengers, and 5 hijackers crash into the World Trade Center's North Tower. As the plane plows through the building at 466 miles per hour, its impact severs all emergency stairwells above the 91st floor, trapping the nearly 1,400 people who were working there. Burning jet fuel funnels lines of liquid fire down the elevator shaft. Within minutes across the nation, many of us hear the somber words. We interrupt this regularly scheduled program for a special announcement. Breaking news from New York. On screen, red-hot flames and reams of thick black smoke pour from gashes high in one of the twin towers. Cameras closer to the building show thousands and thousands of sheets of paper from the damaged offices floating aloft in thermals created by the flames. CNN anchor Carol Lynn is the first to break the news. This just in. You are looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center. And we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center. CNN Center right now is just beginning to work on this story, obviously calling our sources and trying to figure out exactly what happened. But clearly, something relatively devastating happening this morning there on the south end of the island of Manhattan. Flames burn at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Within minutes, trapped and overwhelmed by dense smoke and rising heat, people above the crash zone begin to leap from broken windows. They jump alone, in pairs, and in groups. Over the next hour and a half, until the collapse of the building, witnesses report a constant stream of people making that desperate leap from the doomed tower. 8:50 a.m. Eastern Time in Sarasota, Florida. President Bush is informed that a plane has hit the World Trade Center. At 8:54 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 is hijacked and is reversed toward Washington, D.C. 5 minutes later, United Flight 175 passenger Brian Sweeney, a former U.S. Navy pilot, leaves this message for his wife. "Hi, Jules, it's Brian. Listen, I'm on an airplane that's just been hijacked. If things don't go well, and it's not looking good, I just want you to know I absolutely love you. I want you to do good. Go have a good time. The same to my parents and everybody, and I just totally love you. And I'll see you when you get there. Bye, babe." 9:02 Eastern Time, the Port Authority begins the evacuation of the South Tower. Survivors report walking carefully down the dark, smoky stairs, joined hand in hand because they could not see more than a hand's length ahead. 9:03 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 8:03 here. Flying at 587 miles per hour, United Flight 175, carrying 51 passengers, 9 crew members, and 5 hijackers, crashes into the World Trade Center's South Tower. Its impact on floors 77 through 85 creates a massive fireball, severs 2 of 3 emergency stairwells, and damages the elevators. Thousands watch as cameras trained on the damaged North Tower capture the impact and the resulting devastation on live television. 9:07 Eastern Time from the 101st floor of the North Tower. 31-year-old Melissa Harrington Hughes calls her sleeping newlywed husband in San Francisco to say goodbye. Her words, "Sean, it's me. I just wanted to let you know I love you. And I'm stuck in this building in New York. A plane hit the building or a bomb went off, we don't know. But there's lots of smoke and I just wanted you to know I love you." 9:10 a.m., trapped in standstill traffic in the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, Eric Trolson snaps a photo of Squad 1 firefighter Gary Box in the last minutes of his life, running in full gear through the stopped cars toward Ground Zero. As almost 15,000 frightened people stream from the area, emergency responders, firefighters, police, and paramedics run into the danger, into the buildings, up those dark and smoke-filled staircases, their bravery and their knowledge saving thousands of lives. 9:15 a.m., in the midst of this overwhelming horror, there was still room for kindness. At the base of the South Tower, people who have walked down hundreds of steps, including many women who are realizing that their high-heeled shoes are a hindrance to their safe evacuation, are met at ground level by Foot Locker employees ignoring the danger and handing out sneakers to all who need them. 9:28 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, United Airlines Flight 93 is hijacked and rerouted towards Washington, D.C. President Bush is en route to the Sarasota airport to board Air Force One. 9:37, American Airlines Flight 77, loaded with 49,990 pounds of fuel, crashes into the western side of the Pentagon, killing 53 passengers 6 crew members and 5 hijackers on board the plane, and 125 civilian and military personnel in the building. 9:42 a.m., the Federal Aviation Agency grounds all commercial airliners. 9:45 a.m., the U.S. Capitol and the West Wing of the White House are evacuated. 9:57 a.m., on Flight 93, 13 passengers are able to call officials or loved ones. 6 of the passengers are alerted to the attacks on the Twin Towers. Jeremy Glick calls his wife Lizbeth and tells her some of the passengers plan to take a vote about how to proceed, and joked about taking on the hijackers with the butter knives from their in-flight breakfast. They decide to try and take control of the plane. On the phone relaying information to a United Airlines customer service representative, Todd Beamer's last audible words, "Are you guys ready? Let's roll." 9:59 a.m. After burning for 56 minutes, the South Tower collapses in 10 seconds, killing approximately 600 workers and first responders in the building and the surrounding area. A tidal wave of dust and debris rains from the sky and engulfs those seeking to escape the area. 10:03 a.m., that's 9:03 here, United Flight 93, which passengers were attempting to retake, crashes in a field 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. Witnesses report seeing the plane rolling from side to side and rapidly climbing and diving right before the crash. It is believed that the hijackers were attempting to knock passengers and crew off balance as they stormed the cockpit. The rest of the White House and other federal office buildings in Washington are evacuated. 10:15 a.m., the damaged section of the Pentagon's outermost offices, known as the E-Ring, collapses. As the west side of the building burns, the National Military Command Center, located on the east side of the Pentagon, coordinates the U.S. military response to the 9/11 attacks. 10:28 a.m. After burning for 102 minutes, the World Trade Center's North Tower collapses, killing approximately 1,400 in the building and the surrounding area. Miraculously, 14 people, 13 first responders and 1 civilian in the stairwell survived the collapse. Firefighter Lieutenant Mickey Cross was one of the survivors. After the collapse, first there is a few moments of profound silence. Then, to his relief, he can hear the others begin to call out, "He is not alone." And then he notices, and I quote, "The strangest thing happened. This beam of sunlight came right in on us, like about 8 inches long, but it was clearly sunlight. It was all dirty and full of debris. It looked like pepper was falling around in it, sort of, but it was sunlight. I'm amazed now. A 110-story building fell on us, and I'm looking up at the sun." 11:02 a.m., Mayor Rudy Giuliani orders the evacuation of Lower Manhattan. 12:16 Eastern Daylight Time, the last commercial flight in continental United States airspace is landed. In about 2 hours and 30 minutes, air traffic controllers safely guide down 3,000 commercial flights and 1,200 private planes, stranding thousands of passengers far from their intended destinations. 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Thomas Franklin captures an image of the unconquerable American spirit when he snaps a photograph of firefighters George Johnson, Dan McWilliams, and Billy Eisengrine raising the American flag against a background of the devastation at Ground Zero. 5:20 Eastern Time, adjacent to the North Tower and heavily damaged by its collapse and the long-burning fire, the 47-story building, World Trade Center number 7, collapses, endangering the lives of emergency crews at the site. Thankfully, no one is injured. 8:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 7:30 here, President Bush addresses the nation. In his 4-minute speech, he states, "A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve." 12:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, September 12th. The last survivor, Janelle Guzman McMillan, is pulled from the wreckage of the North Tower. Search and recovery operations continue for another 230 days. The aftermath. 2,977 people were killed in the attacks. 343 firefighters and paramedics were killed. 23 New York police officers killed. 37 Port Authority police officers were killed. 1,402 employees died in the North Tower. 614 employees died in the South Tower. 115 nations had citizens who were killed in the attacks. 1,717 families received no remains. 1,609 people lost a spouse or a partner in the attacks. 3,051 children lost one parent. 17 babies were born to women whose husbands were lost. 2.5-year-old Christine Lee Hansen was the youngest victim. 85-year-old Robert Grant Norton was the oldest victim. Father Michael Judge was the first official victim, hit by falling debris while administering the last rites to a firefighter. 52 million people knew someone who died in the attacks. 36,000 units of blood were donated to the New York Blood Center. 1.5 million tons of debris was removed from Ground Zero. And fires continued to burn for 99 days after the attack. On the morning of September 11th, 2001, we did not know the tragedy bearing down on us. We did not know that America would be the victim of a heinous crime. We did not know that the memory of this date would be forever changed. On that fateful day, America showed heroism in ways large and small. We know now the fragility of human life and the indomitability of the human spirit. We know that in times of trial, we draw together. We know that in the face of adversity and against overwhelming odds, we are strong people. We know that we truly are the land of the free and the home of the brave.
My name is Robert Fitzsimons, and I am your neighbor here in this community. I want to thank the organizers of this event, the volunteers that helped make this happen. I want to thank all of you for attending today. This remembrance is personal to me and my family. There is some solace in seeing you here, demonstrating that you remember. 10 years have passed since September 11, 2001, And yet, we all can tell where we were, what we were doing, who we were with on that day. That day was horrific, unmatched in my lifetime. It seems as though it was only days ago, but it's been 10 years. For the past 10 years, my family, and I'm sure thousands of others, have held a special remembrance service for those who passed on 9/11 and offered their lives for their fellow man. My family each year attends a Mass of Intention for my brother Richard Patrick Fitzsimons, Fire Safety Director at the Twin Towers. Over the past 10 years, many people have approached me or my family and expressed their sympathy and sorrow for our loss. They are interested to learn in the circumstances surrounding his death and the events that followed. It gave them a sense of belonging and a bond to a fallen hero who gave his life for his fellow man. They feel, after hearing the story, that they have a personal connection with someone who has been in the towers. It gives them a stronger tie in their remembrance, a personal focus for their thoughts and their prayers. I am here today to share with you the story of Richard Patrick Fitzsimons, Fire Safety Director, Medal of Valor recipient, who perished in Tower 2 on September 11th. Richard had retired from the New York telephone company. He was recruited by his neighbor, Bill Wren, to work for the OCS Security, a company retained by the New York Port Authority for the purpose of fire safety in the towers. The Port Authority felt fire safety and evacuation procedures were lacking after the attack in the towers in 1993. Let me begin with the morning of September 11th. I was on the golf course, entertaining a client. Our foursome heard of the attack from a cart vendor. A plane crashed into the towers, but little else. We felt it was an unfortunate event, that it was probably just a wayward pilot in a private aircraft. Little did we know. When we entered the clubhouse, we learned the true significance of the crash. I was immediately concerned for my brother Richard and hoped that he was not at work. His plan had to be in Crystal River, Florida, doing some maintenance on his getaway home. What I did not know was that he canceled his trip so he could complete a work project and attend an evacuation procedure meeting. I made phone calls to Richard's wife. The lines, as you know, as expected, were busy. No one was able to get through to New York. When I reached my wife, Kay, she told me that Pat, Richard's wife, received a call and that Richie was okay. They felt, and I'm quoting, "We're home free." What followed was a journey that no man should ever take, and yet, and sadly, many did. There was no further communication from the men. All efforts to obtain a scrap of information, a bit of news, was in vain. The long vigil began. I know that we were all praying that they were safe, hidden somewhere in the towers, and that they would be found alive. My brothers and I did what we could to get some news regarding the men. My brother Pat and I attempted to contact Richard's employer, OCS Security. No luck. We also attempted to contact the New York Fire Department, Police Department, the Department of Authorities, and the same. No luck. Pat was retired Chief of Police of Seattle, Washington, and a consultant with the FBI. He did what he could do with his connections, but no results. My brother Jack, a retired New York police officer living in New York. He was able to get word out that Richard was missing. He visited hospitals with no results, and as last resort, searched the morgue to see if he might be there. Again, no results. We believe I can tell you now what we learned about Richard and what he was doing during the evacuation of the towers. We know that he went to the control center to assist the arriving fire department personnel. The Twin Tower fire safety directors knew those buildings like the back of their hands. It was their job to help arriving fire personnel with the location of the elevators, power sources, and other information that they might need. We learned that he and Bill Wren then went to the daycare center of Tower 1, the first building to be struck, to evacuate the children. They rescued 30 children, parents, instructors from the Learning Daycare Center by kicking and breaking out windows to give them an evacuation route. Bill and Rich escorted the children away from the center. They were outside. They could have fled to safety, but they did not. We were told that Rich and Bill decided to go back into Tower 2, which was hit by then. They wanted to ensure that the second daycare center was cleared. We believe it was because Rich, Bill, and other sacrificing heroes that no child perished in the Twin Towers. The particulars that followed are sketchy, but we do know that Richie, the other fire safety directors, firefighters, police, and some brave volunteers spread out in a chain formation, stretching several floors down to the mezzanine itself. The human chain with their flashlights provided a path of beacons through the darkness and debris for civilians. In August of 2002, a gentleman informed the family that he was an evacuee from the tower, that he spoke to Richard during the evacuation. Richard was part of a human chain, he said. I asked him to leave, and Richard said, I'm here to do my job. And that job is saving lives. He said, when I was several blocks from the building, I saw her come down. I knew Richard did not make it out. God bless him. Many people made it out that day. A New York reporter wrote in his article, Honorable Rescue. In 1993, it took 9.5 hours to evacuate the building. Today, thousands of people are alive because of the work of the Twin Tower fire safety officers. They did it by preparing occupants for safety and evacuations, and my brother was one of those officers. The towers imploded in less than 2 hours, and over 20,000 people reached safety. That's the results of the program my brother had championed after the 1993 attack, and it did make a huge difference on 9/11. The time and the years that followed Richard's passing have brought both comfort and sorrow to our family. There were occurrences that continue to bring Richard home to us. On March the 19th, 2002, it was reported that the remains of bodies were uncovered from a pocket in Tower 2, near a command station. It was announced that 11 firefighters were recovered and 2 civilians. Their bodies were all in close proximity, so we believe that this was the human chain that saved so many lives. By March 31st of 2002, Richard's remains were identified. In December of 2002, near his birthday, his dual citizen application was approved, and he was now a citizen in his second home, Ireland. A year now passes. In December, near his birthday, a package arrived from a recovery unit It contained his tattered wallet, which still had his credit card, an ID, and in his special hidden compartment, his emergency $10 bill. In March, the month his remains were found, 2004, they would stop doing DNA recovery procedures. Right before they stopped, and I believe by the hand of God, someone was able to identify the remains of my brother. It was a portion of his left hand with his wedding band still attached. Richard's wife now knows for certain that Richie is home at last. September 2004, the family was called to Washington, D.C. to accept the Medal of Valor for the honorable deeds that Richard performed that day. To this day, we still put a candle on our porch in remembrance of those who died. The endless vigil that so many families endured while praying that their loved ones would be found and returned to them safe. In closing, I want to thank you all for coming and allowing me to tell Richard's story. And then please, in the years to come, never forget September 11th should always be a day of remembrance. God bless you all. Thank you.
I thought I was watching a movie, Towering Inferno at first. And then I looked real close, and I noticed it was the World Trade Center. I was compelled, because I'm a type of person that can't stand by and watch other people suffer. And to me, they were suffering. They wanted to get off the island. And there was no way for them to get off the island other than the water. And I had noticed when I was watching the television, I saw a lot of, the ferries going up into the slips and taking people off. I said, fine, we could do the same thing. I could take people on my boat, get in there, take them where they have to go. And that's what we did.
On the morning of September 11th, when the towers came down, millions of people ran for safety. Hundreds of thousands of them ran south to the water's edge. That's when they realized that Manhattan is indeed an island, and that they were trapped.
They were feeling helpless, and that's the worst feeling in the world. What was a person on the ground going to do? Buildings were down. There were people laying under the rubble of the building. Firemen, civilians. My wife was there, and I turned around. I says, I've got to go do something. Just like that. And she looked at me. She says, what are you going to do, you maniac? I says, I'm going to take the amberjack up into the city and help. She says, but what if they're attacked again? I says, well, then that's something I have to live with. I says, I have to do what I have to do. I says, and nobody can stop me right now. Even if I save one person or I rescue one person, that's one person less that will suffer and die.
They were trying to evacuate Manhattan because nobody knew what was going on. You didn't know if something else was going to happen. It was just, a madness on one side and wanting to help people on the other side.
They were just streaming out of the buildings, and the first mode of transportation they saw was a ferry boat. And that's when they knew, this is how I'm getting out of here. So they didn't even care where the boat was going.
There wasn't panic in New York in the beginning, just volume. It wasn't until the first building fell that there was panic.
You heard the building go down, but we're in the slip, so we can't see it. That's when we started letting go, and then all of a sudden, engulfed. You couldn't see anything.
People were actually jumping into the river and swimming out of Manhattan. Boats were very nearly running them over.
Wait. These people wanted out of Manhattan no matter any way they could.
Somebody wants you to go over there.
Every mode of transportation out of Manhattan was shut down. All the subways were shut. The tunnels were all closed. They closed the bridges. They closed everything immediately.
Boats, usually an afterthought in most New Yorkers' minds, were for the first time in over a century the only way in or out of Lower Manhattan.
We're going to start evacuating people. Anybody can get over here, we're going to evacuate them.
The process actually had already started. There were some boats that were grabbing people, that people were lined up at the walls.
On the left.
It's just human nature. You see people in distress on the seawall in Manhattan begging you to pick them up. You have to pick them up.
They didn't know what was going on. They seen the building getting hit with these two planes. As far as they was concerned, you know, we were being bombed. I was wondering if they were going to come on the boat, if they had people with bombs, or if they were going to come on. We're a big orange target in the middle of that harbor. My job is to keep the boat safe, my passengers safe, my crew safe.
Everybody was in shock, running around. They didn't want to leave their families. They had loved ones running around the city.
Anybody has a baby? Nobody has it.
There was one guy ran from the apron and jumped onto the boat. He grabbed onto the metal, climbed up right next to the pilot. So I'm going out there to say something. He slides down to the next deck. So the deckhands get him and go, what are you doing? He goes, I'm jumping for my life. So, you know, you couldn't argue with him there.
There was a small boat that was at the lower tip of Manhattan. I thought the boat was going to flip over because so many people were trying to get on. And as I looked behind, they were just 10 deep. And that's kind of what gave us the idea.
We decided that this has to get better organized and we better do it, and that's what we did.
So we decided to make the call on the radio. All available boats. This is the United States Coast Guard aboard the pilot boat in New York. Anyone want to help with the evacuation of Lower Manhattan, report to Governor's Island.
When that call came on the radio, they were coming.
I was uncertain of who was going to respond. About 15, 20 minutes later, there were just boats all across the horizon.
Literally 100 targets converging on the lower part of Manhattan.
When we came out of that dust cloud, tugboats, I'd never seen so many tugboats all at once.
There was just like a fleet of tugboats headed to Manhattan.
If it floated and it could get there, it got there.
All different size, shapes, and forms. I mean, and they were zooming across this water.
Ferries, private boats, party boats.
I worked on the water for 28 years. I've never seen that many boats come together at one time that fast. One radio call, and it just came together just that fast.
Hundreds of boats converged on the city, leaving the sun-bathed harbor behind them. Dead ahead, the unknown.
That was something I won't forget. It was just low, dark, acrid, black smoke. It was like there was a big chimney in Manhattan. When we pulled into Pier 11, the dust was unbelievable.
And then out of nowhere, you just kept on seeing people coming.
They looked like zombies coming through the fog, and you knew that those were human beings.
Don't leave us. Please don't leave us here. Take us. At that point, the Coast Guard said, not how many people are you allowed, how many people can you fit?
Come on, guys. Anybody coming? Get your ass over here now. Now. Come on.
Boats started hanging, literally would take a bedsheet off a bunk and a can of spray paint and paint their destination on.
Some of these people never been in the water, never been on a boat before.
Housewives, workers that do windows. We had executives. And the thing that was the best, everyone helped everyone.
I want you to hold my hand. Come on board. Get inside. One at a time. Get inside.
I saw 4 businessmen lifting up an old woman with a seeing eye dog, a German Shepherd, and they lifted her up like a surfboard and passed her over the handrails.
When we would carry a load of people over, and there was somebody standing there that seen their husband or wife, you know, that made us feel even better, you know. Well, at least we got 2 back together, you know. Keep on going, you know.
The guy that works at the ferry, he's a welder. His son was on my boat. He actually came up. He thanked me.
We went back and forth all day long, carrying boatloads, as many as our boat would hold. And it was a lot of people. A lot of people.
You couldn't have planned nothing to happen that fast, that quick.
No training. This was just people doing what they had to do that day.
You forget all about what you're supposed to do, what they teach you in school, and you say, you know what? Morally, this is the right way to go, and deep down, this is what I'm gonna do.
Average people, they stepped up, and when they needed to, they showed me, you know, when the American people need to come together and pull together, they will do it.
I do feel a way honored that I was a part of it.
It was the greatest thing I ever did with my life.
The greatest day that I've ever seen in all my boating. I mean, my life on the water.
The great boat lift of 9/11 became the largest sea evacuation in history. Larger than the evacuation of Dunkirk in World War II, where 339,000 British and French soldiers were rescued over the course of 9 days. On 9/11, nearly 500,000 civilians were rescued from Manhattan by boat. It took less than 9 hours.
I believe somebody has a little hero in them. You gotta look in, and it's in there. It'll come out, if need to be.
I have one theory in life. I never want to say the word I should have. If I do it and I fail, I tried. If I do it and I succeed, better for me. And I tell my children the same thing. Never go through life saying you should have. If you want to do something, you do it.
Good evening.
On a strip of sand at the southern tip of New Jersey.
Welcome to Sunset Beach.
There's a flagpole where 89-year-old Marvin Hume gathers a group each night.
Every day when I do the service, it's as important to me as the day before and right on back.
Every veteran's casket is draped in a flag.
He served as a corpsman.
Each night, here on Sunset Beach, one of those casket flags is raised to honor a different service member.
And what do you get, 2-3 people come to watch?
You gotta be kidding. I'm talking hundreds that you can't even see the ocean.
He's booked every night through this summer and next summer as well, by families wanting to honor their heroes. This all started when Marvin bought the property from a man who'd been raising and lowering the flag each night. He asked Marvin to continue.
We don't want any red showing.
Marvin, a Navy vet, said sure, thinking about some buddies he'd lost in World War II. Marvin Hume kept his promise, and then some. He's been conducting the sunset ceremony on this beach 7 days a week from Memorial Day to mid-October for the last 38 years. That adds up to nearly 6,000 ceremonies.
I feel honored to be able to come here.
On this night, George McKenna was being remembered, another World War II Navy vet. His daughter-in-law, June, came to the ceremony. No surprise, she's there every night, even when she doesn't know the veteran.
It's always emotional. I mean, sometimes the flags have bullet holes in them. We're all here because of their sacrifice.
How long are you going to continue to do this for?
Till I drop. Sure. That's what keeps me alive.
And keeps alive the memory of those who served, reminding us all that the 4th of July is more than just a long summer's weekend. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, Cape May Point, New Jersey.